Hi guys, welcome to our final unit, Unit 6, Trinitarian Theology. What do we mean by Trinitarian Theology? Well, first, what does the word Trinity mean?
Trinity.
Trinity, derived from a Latin term trinitas, refers to God being three persons in one. The Christian faith, all Christians are monotheistic. We believe there is one God. But this God has three different personas, if you will, three different faces, three different ways of understanding this God. We call these ways Father, Son, and Spirit, or Source, Word, and Spirit, or whatever you want to call it. Three in one. Think of it this way. A light is shining through a stained glass window. You have one source of light, but as it goes through a stained glass window, we'll say three colors of a stained glass window, that singular light shines through that stained glass window, and now it comes across in three different colors. It's still the same source, but it's being manifested in three unique ways. That's the best way to understand Trinity. This is also not unlike the Hindu belief system. You typically hear that the Hindus are polytheistic because they have 330 million different gods.
Are you sure?
Of course.
Add one to it.
But if you ask a Hindu, they're actually going to say they're monotheistic. Their god's name is Brahman, and Brahman manifests himself in 330 million different ways. Which way do you best relate to God? A Hindu might even say Jesus is their God, because Jesus is a way that Brahman manifests himself to the Christians. Such a very open way of understanding God. Well, the Christians, we keep it simple. We keep it down to three persons in one. So this unit is called Trinitarian Theology, and we're going to come to understand how did we get to the theology that is eventually known as the Trinity. Did you know that the word Trinity doesn't show up anywhere in the Bible?
I had no idea.
Trinity, of course, as I mentioned, is Latin. The Bible was written in Hebrew and Greek. What we do have in the Bible, namely the New Testament, is the foundation for the Trinity. You obviously know God, who's talked about a lot in the Old Testament and is referenced in the New Testament. The New Testament is primarily about Jesus. It alludes to, slightly, the Holy Spirit. You see that a lot in the Gospel of John, when Jesus refers to the Holy Spirit as his advocate or the helper that is going to assist humanity. Paul does a lot on spirit versus flesh, but there's no real formal theology of the Spirit spelled out in the New Testament. And that's because the Spirit has not really fully been revealed by the time the New Testament was written. So what this final part of this course is going to focus on in this season of the K-Source is going to focus on is what happened after John wrote his Gospel. John is the last canonical Gospel. We're done with the Gospels. How did we get to Trinity? How did we get to our current belief on the hypostatic union, that Jesus is 100% human and 100% divine? Well, the quick answer to that question is a couple hundred years go by. Ultimately, it's the formation of the Nicene Creed in the 4th century that really finally puts it into simple terms, if you call it simple, consubstantial, I mean really, what exactly we believe when it comes to Trinity. So these final few episodes are going to focus on what happened at the closure of the New Testament that led up to the formation of the Nicene Creed. Another term I want us to understand today is the word heresy. Heresy is a term that you can generically just refer to as a false teaching. False teaching against what? It's a false teaching against some essential teaching of the church. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at Christological heresies. These would be teachings that were false when it came to understanding Jesus. Now, what I want you to understand before I get into any of these Christological heresies is that the end of the 1st century was a messy time.
Messy, messy, messy.
The apostles were killed off. You're now in the 2nd generations of Christians. The New Testament was still being formed. I mean, you have the 4 Gospels, but you also had like 96 other Gospels that were floating around in either oral or written tradition.
Are you sure?
Add one to it.
The bishops were just starting to gain authority. We had no central papacy. We had no creed, obviously. There was no magisterium. There was no teaching body of the church. Where am I going with this? It was very easy to be a Christian and be in error when it came to understanding Christ. I mean, just look at the way the 4 Gospels complement but also contradict each other. I mean, compare Mark to John, you have the 20 years of Christology formation. So people are walking away from looking at the apocryphal Gospels, those are the left out Gospels, being confused and not knowing who to talk to when it comes to an understanding of Christ. So this gives rise to heresy. There are at least 100 different versions of Christianity by the end of the 1st century.
Oh, add one to it.
And one of the reasons why Emperor Constantine called the Council of Nicaea in the 4th century is to get Christianity on the same page, because there are so many views out there that came to Christ. And these were views that people were willing to die for. People were willing to be martyred for incorrect views when it came to Jesus. So as we talk about heretics, people that commit heresies, they're not enemies. They're not bad people. They were devoted Christians that didn't have anyone or anywhere to check their teachings against to know that they were incorrect. So what I want to do right now is break down early Christological heresies. We're going to look at 7 early Christological heresies. I'm going to define the heresy, describe it for you very briefly, and then we're going to look at what exactly could have been the motivation that led people to believe in this heresy. A lot of times our scriptures, our canonical scriptures, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, gave rise to heresy because they had no church authority to help the people understand these Gospels. And then finally we're going to look at which Gospels may have been composed or included specific details within their Gospel to challenge a popular heresy of the 1st century.